All right, we are going to now close off this module on abnormal psychology and psychopathology by talking about stress, health, and coping, some ways that we can actually deal with stress. And the next module will talk about treatments in general for the disorders. So what is stress? Stress is something that we all experience. It's common in life. It's just part of our biological process to experience stress. And it's very much tied into our perceptions and our responses. So stress is triggered by how I perceive in a particular environment. If I am in an environment and I appraise that environment as being threatening, I'm going to experience stress. In fact, the primary appraisal of the stress appraisal process has me looking at my environment and appraising what is out there and how dangerous is it to me. And that's very much a biological, has a biological and evolutionary underpinning. When we were running around in far less developed areas where we were combating for our lives against other mammals on the planet, we had to appraise, is that saber-toothed tiger going to cause me harm? Is that snake going to cause me harm? And I have to appraise the danger and as well as the environment around me for other features of danger. Then I enter into the secondary appraisal phase, which is where I begin to understand about myself, what do I have within me, and maybe even what do I have access to outside of me to deal with that stressor. So it's a two-part process. Primary is what's actually stressing me out in my environment. Secondary to that is what do I have to cope with that. If I overestimate the environment and I underestimate my ability to cope, I'm going to be living in a much more stressful mindset more of the time. If I can manage to reduce my stress reactions to my environment and actually inflate or really pump up my belief in my personal ability to cope, well then I'm going to be far less stressed and much more able to cope with what comes my way. For example, in taking a CLEP exam. Now, not all stress is bad stress. We know that there are types of stresses that are helpful to us. We call this eustress. So when it comes to preparing for a date, you get stressed. Sometimes there are butterflies in your stomach. You're a bit nervous, but those nerves help you prepare for that date, or maybe it's for a sporting activity. There may be a bit of nerves and stress, but you use that stress to your advantage to help you cope with that and actually to excel in those scenarios. So that's an example of good stress. Now, when I am overly stressed or I'm in distress, I might have passed, this is kind of an optimal level of stress. It's building up, it's building up, it's building up over time. So this is time and this is stress over here. And over time, I might begin to lose that energy and begin to burn out. Because I get past my optimal level of stress. When we do go over this optimal level of stress, we begin to have an increase in sensitivity to pain. My immune system begins to be affected, and so as my stress level increases, the susceptibility within my immune system increases. As my stress level increases, and as it goes up, as I indicated here, my psychological disorders will increase. As my stress level increases, risk factors for cardiovascular illnesses increase as well. So I might experience heart attacks, more likely strokes, and other diseases and disorders as my immune system begins to weaken due to the fact that stress level increases. If you think about it in your own experiences, when you're taking your finals, isn't that oftentimes when people are experiencing colds and they're blowing their noses and they're feeling sick and they're tired and the minute after finals are over, they crash hard. That's because with all the stress that you've been under during your preparation for your exams, your immune system gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and eventually you crash. And that's basically how it goes. There are various coping styles that come into play when dealing with stress. We have the problem-focused style of coping, where I try to alleviate the source of the stress itself. So if I am trying to study for an exam and my brother is playing loud music, so I go to my brother's room, I knock on the door and I say, hey, can you turn your music down? I'm trying to study. Or I might put earplugs on, or go to a different room in the house. So I do things to try to alleviate the source of stress. Emotion-focused responses is when I reappraise the stressor, and I try to construe it differently. So maybe I say, you know, it's not so bad that my brother's music is playing. I kind of like the music that he's playing. Maybe it'll help me focus. So that's a way of using my own internal emotions to reassess the situation and cope with it. In terms of coping, social support is one of the most significant features that a person can bring into their lives to cope with stress. We know that social support is indicative of longevity and long lifespan. So research shows that people who are living over the age of 80 and 90 show to have still a social support network. We know that people coping with financial difficulties or relationship problems at any point in life, if they turn to social support, that will significantly help them manage their stress levels. And then finally, there are multitudes of stress reduction techniques that you can call upon to help you deal with stress. Exercise is a very well-established method for coping with stress. 15 minutes to 30 minutes of cardiovascular activity a day is quite helpful for reducing stress levels. Even if you can get to do 20 push-ups and 10 sit-ups or any type of heart-exerting physical activity can significantly help reduce your stress. We know that meditation is an extremely powerful tool for reducing stress levels. If you're able and meditation shouldn't feel like something that has a high level of perfection. Even if you were to sit for 10 seconds and close your eyes and say to yourself, what does my breath feel like right now? And you open your eyes, you have meditated. There's no right or wrong way to go about it. You can download many apps that can help you with meditation these days. So I highly encourage you to explore meditation as a form of stress reduction. There are other techniques like biofeedback, which can be helpful in stress reduction. Being aware of your nutrition can also play a role in your body's ability to cope with stress and to maintain a healthy immune system. So all of this being said, it's important for you to be aware of stress, especially when you're preparing for the CLEP exam. Be mindful of your stress levels. Be mindful of burning out. Be mindful of exercising and meditating and bringing on other techniques to help you cope with your stress during these particular types of challenging experiences in your life. That about covers it for this module on abnormal psychology or psychological disorders. And we'll be picking up with the next module on, I believe, on the treatment of psychological disorders.